The pros and cons of living in Florida. That's what we're talking about today, so stick around. What's up, everybody? It's April Laura, your Florida realtor, right here talking about the pros and cons of Florida, living in Florida. Maybe you're thinking about moving to Florida. Well, that's what I'm talking about today. And if this is your first time to my channel and you want to know everything there is about working, eating, sleeping, playing, and living in Florida, then make sure you tap that subscribe button and ring the little bell so you're notified every time I do a new video, because it's pretty much all I talk about. I'm a Florida real estate agent, and my team and I specialize in people moving to and moving in and out of Florida. We get calls, text messages, and emails every single day, and we absolutely love it. But we can't do that unless you give us a call, send us a text, shoot us an email, somehow get in touch with us, because we've got your back when you're moving to Florida. Now, let's go talk about the pros and cons. The last couple of years, with everything that's happened in the world, especially the pandemic, it really shined a light on Florida as a state. And there was obviously a lot of movement, a lot of growth to our state. I'm sure all of you already know that, but it's brought on a lot of changes, right? So this is my up-to-date pros and cons of living in Florida, 2023 version. This is actually, it's January 2nd when I am recording this. This video is going to be released this Friday. So it's my first video of the year. Happy New Year to everybody. And let's see what 2023 brings us. The last couple years have been huge growth in Florida. Pandemic really shined its light on Florida living, what it's like to live here. And I just think that a lot of people recognize us as a state to live in, where maybe they'd never thought about it before. And obviously a lot of you bought into it because our population growth has exploded. We have grown tremendously in the last couple of years, and that's still going on even with these higher interest rates that we are experiencing right now, where there's still a lot of buyer demand. Now, I'm talking about the state as a whole. Living in Florida has always been pretty popular. People that want that subtropical lifestyle, a lot of people that wanted to retire in a warmer climate, they chose Florida. And of course, there's a lot of different types of people that live in Florida and that have always lived in Florida. So I've lived here all my life, and there are definitely goods and bads to living here, but no place is perfect. And I've said that a million times. So you have to take the goods and the bads. Where are you coming from? What's important to you? What can you handle? And what can you look past? And I really think that with all of this growth, the word spread about Florida, it's not what most people thought it was, or maybe some people came here and they decided, hey, this really isn't for me. Well, either way, I am going to be going over the pros and cons. So let's get into it. So the first one would have to be population growth. So if you just Google it, you will see that the Florida population has increased by 1.9%, and the total population between 2021 and 2022 is 22,244,823, which is surpassing Idaho's previous fastest growing state. So Florida is now the fastest growing state. So with population growth, I mean, it is, I guess, good. Some people can consider it good. I think a lot of native Floridians probably don't like it, because a lot of native kind of old school Floridians, they were used to what they were used to. Now, I am a native Floridian, but I actually appreciate growth. But there are a lot of people I know that live here, and they kind of liked the quiet lifestyle if they were living on land that was a larger lot or in a more rural area. Quite frankly, I moved to Palm Beach County in 2023. I moved up from a very busy city. I moved up from Miami, which is the most expensive city, the most populated city, the fastest paced city, the most overcrowded city. So when I moved to Palm Beach County, I actually thought it was very slow. I didn't know how I was going to manage because it was just such a slower pace of life. I also moved to a, suburban kind of community where I just wasn't used to it being so much slower. So it took quite a while, a couple years at the very least, to adjust to it, and then every year got better and better and better. And I think in general, if you're moving to any state or any other city, it's going to take some time to adjust. I mean, I just moved an hour and a few minutes up the road, and it was quite an adjustment for me. So take that into consideration. And so with this population growth, there's going to be a lot of things happening. Obviously, there's going to be more people, more waiting around when you go out to the popular dining spots. The malls are going to be more expensive. There's going to be more traffic. And in South Florida, we are a melting pot. So we have people coming from everywhere, from international people moving here or visiting here. We have lots of tourists from everywhere. We have people moving here from different states and different cities. So the driving styles are a little bit different and they can be crazy. I-95 is one of the main highways going north and south, and it doesn't have any tolls. So you will find a lot of like construction workers on there, regular population, people traveling from city to city or coming into our state. It runs north-south. So there's a lot of people on I-95 at all times, but of course during the rush hours, an hour before or after, you're gonna find a lot of traffic and lots of accidents, and there's usually construction going on somewhere along there at all times, especially the bigger cities, because they're always trying to expand the roadways because of the population growth. Those are kind of some of the bad things, right? The cons of population growth, but the good things are things like we are going to have better retail, better dining, better establishments, higher paying jobs eventually. Little by little, it comes with growth. So there are good things and there are bad things like anywhere else, but there has been a huge population growth here, so take that into consideration.
Hold up. Wait a minute.
Number two would be, it's gotten really expensive to live in Florida. I think no matter where you end up in Florida, it is expensive, but the further south you go or to the bigger cities, you're gonna find it has increased ridiculously. I mean, check this article out. You can see in this article here that the reason why the houses are so expensive now is because of the population growth. Here it says that Florida housing prices have risen by 78% in the last 5 years. So of course, again, if you're going south into the Miami, Fort Lauderdale areas, or Tampa is another big city, Orlando is kind of in the middle of the state, but also kind of popular. Winter Haven is beautiful. And then you've got some smaller areas that are growing, like in the Palm Coast area. And of course you have Jacksonville and all of those areas surrounding there, which Jacksonville is a bit more affordable, but that's also a completely different area. So it is going to be more expensive kind of everywhere. But again, in the bigger cities, you're going to find the most growth, the most expensive homes. Now, not only are the homes expensive, but also home insurance. Home insurance has increased. I mean, that's kind of an issue that we have always dealt with living in Florida, is that our home insurance kind of fluctuates and varies. And in the last several years, and it's not only due to the hurricanes, it's due to actually all of the damage that has been going on throughout the United States, right? Home insurance companies have to pay out for those damages. And of course, in Florida, we have a lot of storms, we have hurricanes, we just have a lot of water intrusion in general, and we do have a more humid climate the further south you go. That's always something to take into consideration, and that does affect our home insurance rates. I know that in the last year and a half, home insurance, like Citizens, which is the biggest carrier here, sent out letters stating, hey, if your roof is greater than 25 years old, we will no longer insure you, which was a huge expense for a lot of people, because depending on the size of your home, it will definitely be thousands of dollars. It just matters, how many thousands of dollars that roof is going to cost you. But you have to have home insurance because you have to cover your home in case anything ever happens, like one of those dreaded hurricanes. So when you're buying a house in Florida, that's one of the main things we look at when we're working with buyers, is how old is the roof? And it also depends on what type of roof it is. Is it a shingle roof? Is it a barrel tile roof? Is it a concrete tile flat roof? What type? Is it a metal roof? When was it put on? How many years of life does it have left? Now, a roofer can tell you that a roof is in great condition and it has X amount of years left on the roof. He could tell you that about a 25-year-old roof. And guess what? The insurance companies don't care. They will still say it's this age, we will not insure it, or it is this age, and they will deduct points from your insurance, causing your insurance to go up. It's not always about the life left that the roofer determines. It is the age right now that's most important. And home insurance can be very costly depending on several other things, but that's one of the main things. Property taxes are another thing. Property taxes have increased. In fact, this morning I got a pre-approval letter from one of my buyers, and he is actually looking at a townhome, or it's like a villa, and it's priced at, we're hoping around the $392,000, maybe $500. We're hoping to go into contract at around $392,000. Well, the past owner's property taxes for the year were $1,770, and the lender is estimating, which we're not sure exactly where it will fall, but they're expecting those property taxes to go up to $5,200. You have to add in about 1.3 to any 1.6 or even 1.8% of the purchase price, depending on what it is, where you're buying, if you have any credits, etc. So property taxes will also increase your housing cost of living when it comes to buying a home.
It's free real estate.
Now those are the cons. But what are the pros? Well, what's not expensive in Florida is that we are a no state income tax state. So that is a huge, one of the huge draws that people take into consideration when they are moving to Florida, because depending on where you are coming from, you might have state income tax. And if that decreases your costs in your cost of living, then you can offset some of those costs that you're already used to with the higher insurance, home insurance rates, and maybe a little bit more, or actually the property taxes, if you're coming from a high property tax state, might be the same or even less. This really does depend on where you are coming from. There are a couple people actually that called me this morning, and one of them is originally from Texas but living on the west side of Florida, and she wants to move to the east coast of Florida. Her budget was really around $400,000 for a single family home, and she wanted to be in South Florida, which is Palm Beach County, Broward, or Miami, but mainly Palm Beach County is where she wanted to really be, and she wanted something new in a single family home, and it just doesn't exist at that price point. It was too expensive for her. She's going to shop a little bit further north in the Port St. Lucie area. We're helping her there, and it's not exactly where she wants to be, but she's got a lot of pros there that she's happy with, and it's close enough to Palm Beach County where she can travel, which her and her daughter do a lot. Now, the other caller called me today, and I don't think he's going to be able to move to the East Coast. He's actually living in Cape Coral. He got a job transfer, but he wants a single family home and he wants it newer, and his price point's around $275,000. That just absolutely does not exist. I mean, you could probably get a condo or townhome, something like that, a villa, but it's not going to be new. It's going to be used. It may or may not have some renovations. The issue is that a lot of people do want to come here and have something new, and at those lower price points, it just doesn't exist. But you can find that in other areas. If you go further north to the Melbourne area, maybe to the Jacksonville area, you're going to be in a much better price point. But if you have a job offer that is south of there, then that's, not going to kind of line up. He may not be able to take that job. He might have to be transferred somewhere else.
I see a big tray. I'm leaving here with something.
The wages are kind of a con as well, because general in Florida, and I've known this all my life, like most other places or bigger cities, because when I was living in Miami, we just weren't getting paid the same amount as some other bigger cities. So that's kind of always been there, but the finance world, especially, of course, hospitality and tourism here have always been huge industries. A lot of finance companies have moved down from the Northeast. So we have some big headquarters in Miami and Boca Raton and West Palm Beach. Those wages are increasing. There is some tech also that's kind of locally moved into the Florida market, not as much as like Texas and some other areas, but our wages are growing. I just don't think that they're 100% there yet. And also inflation is happening kind of everywhere. So that doesn't help. Hoping that all of that, starts to settle down in the next couple years and see how the wages end up in Florida. So we definitely have some cons when it comes to how expensive it's getting, even though it's not as expensive as a lot of other states, and property taxes, home insurance, and things like that. But what we have always have and probably always will have is a beautiful outdoor lifestyle that you can enjoy year round. And that is a huge, huge draw for most people, whether we're in a pandemic or not, which we're not anymore, thank God. But I think that kind of opened everybody's eyes, where it's like, hey, I don't have to just wait for the summer months to be able to go boating or be outside, go golfing, tennis, riding your bike year round, going out paddleboarding or jet skiing or whatever it is, lying on the beach or not, going to outdoor parks, being outside at your home, just being, outside in your yard, your kids playing in the yard, sending your kids outside so that they're not inside on technology all day long. We do that here. We do that year round, and in the winter months it is so beautiful. And of course today is January 2nd and it's hot, but it has been really nice, especially in the mornings and the evenings. So this is the time of year. I mean, yesterday I went to this incredible monthly market that I go to. We did yoga outside in the park. This park is Veterans Park in Delray Beach, and it is right on the Intercoastal Waterway. So although it was warming up in the morning time, it was very breezy, and it was just a beautiful, beautiful time of year. Christmas and all the holidays just passed, and look what I did. I went to a holiday party on a boat. Check this out in Fort Lauderdale. I mean, this footage is beautiful. The night was gorgeous. It was a little cloudy, but it didn't rain, and we had the interior of the boat anyways. So it's, we had the boat parade. That's always fun during the holidays. Downtown West Palm has a huge Christmas tree made out of sand. So there are so many great areas, and there's outdoor live music. There's just a great outdoor lifestyle in Florida, and that's a huge draw. And that's why a lot of people realize that I don't want to be cooped up in my house, whether it snows or not. I just don't want to deal with the snow anymore. I don't want to be cooped up in my house. I want to enjoy the environment, and that is what we do a lot of here. To be able to go on a boat and bar hop, or, go grab some dinner or lunch and go for a cruise, watch the sunset. You can do that a lot here in Florida, kind of on any coast, up and down the coast. We have a huge state, but there are plenty of areas. Unless you live in the middle of the state, then it's going to take you, 2 to 3 hours to get to the East Coast or the West Coast. But other than that, we just enjoy golfing, tennis, pickleball is huge right now. I mean, soccer, everything. I actually had a Canadian client of mine come down and stay for several days. We actually had a cold snap, and he was with his children, and he was like, oh my gosh, we were kind of stuck indoors. And I said, why was that? And he said, well, because it was cold, and all of your outdoor activities are outdoor. Like where he lives in Canada, they have indoor soccer, they have indoor basketball. We have a lot of outdoor everything. The basketball courts, the soccer fields, everything is outdoor. We don't really have indoor pools because we don't need them. I mean, a couple communities have them. For the most part, most do not have indoor pools and such. It's not usually an issue. We had like 2 days where during the day it was like in the 40s, and that's rare. It was actually during Christmas this year, and I don't think that's ever happened at Christmas for it to be like in the low to mid 40s. I actually enjoyed it. It was a nice reprieve, but the kids had to stay inside. Location. Okay, so location varies. Where are you looking to move in Florida? Are you looking to move to South Florida? Are you looking to move to mid Florida? Are you looking to move to the East Coast or the West Coast? Tampa, Orlando, St. Augustine, Jacksonville. Our state is huge. It's long. There are a lot of different types of areas because like I'm in South Florida, my sister's in Tampa, and she's always about 10 degrees-ish cooler than we are down here because she's further north and west. Now on the west coast of Florida also, they experience is called red tide. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but it has to do with microorganisms in the water and bacteria, and it releases all these gases and it goes into the air, and people experience like respiratory issues, wheezing, coughing. People that have allergies, it can really affect them a lot. I mean, there are a couple buyers that I've worked with in the past where they could not live on the west coast of Florida. Then they were scared to live on the east coast of Florida because they heard it happens here. I'm sure it happens here. I've always been on the east coast and it's never affected me. So I do know it definitely happens in the Gulf of Mexico more. So on the west coast of Florida, you are going to experience that a little bit more. So that's something to take into consideration. But as far as location, getting back to what I was saying, if you go further north into like Jacksonville, when you start driving the state, when you get into Gainesville and then up to Jacksonville, it feels like a completely different state if you're from the south, because south is like subtropical, very warm weather, almost islandy. And then as you go north, when you start, and it's very flat in the south. So once you go towards the north, you will find some hills, which is very unusual for South Floridians. And the temperatures also are more like, South Georgia. So you are going to get way cooler cool snaps. So if you still want to have some of that coolness, you might choose more north in Florida. And if you like road trips, then whoopee for you, because it takes forever to get out of our state. I actually don't do road trips that much. I mean, I would, but it just takes so long to get out of the state. It's hard to get to another state depending on where you're going and where you're coming from. So if you're coming from the south and you want to go to like any of the northern states, it takes 2 to 3 days. If you're a car person and you like car trips or road trips, then more power to you. You are going to enjoy it. But it just takes a long time to get out of the state. It can take like 6, 7, 8 hours depending on where you're coming from just to get out of the state. For me, that's a con.
Damn!
Florida is such a melting pot, and that could be a pro or a con depending on who you are and what you like and how you like to live. We have a huge diversity of people, and that blends into the types of foods that we have available to us. We have a lot of Caribbean, we have a lot of Latin influence in South Florida. We also have, of course, a lot of Italians because there's a lot of Northeasterners that have come down. We have a lot of Midwesterners that come down to the West Coast, so their influence is there. And now we have like Texans that are here, and we have people from Nashville and lots of Californians that are moving into Florida. So it really is a melting pot. There's a huge diverse crowd. Everybody that you meet is going to be from somewhere else. In fact, I'm a native Floridian, and what I hear the most is, oh my God, you're native? I've never met a native Floridian. Although I know a lot of native Floridians because they're all my friends that I grew up with. But you know, a lot of people are transplants, and with our population increase, you know, that kind of tells the story, right? So if you like the fact that there are going to be lots of different people from lots of different places, and that's going to blend into food options, also the types of places to go, right? You can go salsa and merengue dancing, you can go to a Caribbean festival, you can go to Russian festivals, Greek festivals, all types of different types of cultural activities to go out and seek out and maybe find something new. Maybe you're somebody that likes a little diversity, so that's a pro. Maybe you're somebody that doesn't want any change and likes the way that you live, and maybe you don't think that you can handle any change. That might be a con. So you let me know. Drop a comment down below. Is it a pro or is it a con? And how are you liking this information? Hit that like button. YouTube has changed its algorithm, and I'm trying to get this information out to more people just like you. But in order to find that perfect place that you may be thinking of or wanting to go see, make sure you give us a call, send us a text, shoot us an email, somehow get in touch with us, because we've got your back when you're moving to Florida. And until next video, I'll catch you later.